The 13 things you need to fix in your pitch deck right now. And this is talking about a screener pitch deck, pre-seed or seed, the deck that you attach to your outreach email that allows the investor to scan it and decide if they want to take the next meeting and get you to pitch them the rest of your pitch deck. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang, 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. That just means I failed a bunch of times for your benefit because I use videos like this at my YouTube channel to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that I do. Not to say you're not going to make the mistakes, but I can help you try and avoid the catastrophic damage that my mistakes have caused me. If you're into this type of content, I'd appreciate it if you like, comment, subscribe. The support is always helpful. And if you're joining me from startups.com, where I am the Chief Strategy Officer, thank you so much for being part of our accelerator community. Let's jump into the 13 things, starting with number 13. Number 13, your cover slide slogan. If you've got marketing hype or some kitschy type of slogan that might work really well with customers, under your company logo on your cover page, get rid of it. Make a very straightforward statement of what your startup does, what industry you are in, and make sure the investor knows exactly where they are going. That's extremely helpful. Don't waste time and make that cover slide count. Number 12 is related. Anything in your deck that is talking to a customer. If you're using words like you can now use the app to go to your favorite place and book a table, you are talking to the customer, not the investor. Make sure you go through and you look and you say, who am I talking to right now? And if it's all about the customer, you're talking to the wrong group. Investors need to see completely different language and content. As soon as you create that perspective, you say, I'm talking to the investor, everything is going to start to change and you're going to get out of talking to the customer. This is the most common mistake that new and early stage founders make. Number 11, which is also related, any buzzy jargon. Get rid of words like revolutionize, disrupt, and hyperbolic statements such as, we are the only ones that do this. We are the first in the marketplace. Investors will not believe that. Make it plain English. Get rid of all the buzzy jargon. Now, after you've gotten rid of the buzzy jargon, get rid of all inside language. Any language that someone needs to have domain expertise to understand what you are talking about, you want to scrub that out right away. Let's say I showed up at your elementary school class for your child, and I was giving this is what I do at my startup day, and I need to explain it to an elementary school class. That's the type of language that you need to be using. If someone needs technical expertise to understand what you're saying, then you are eliminating a lot of investors because they may not know that technical language and you're assuming that they have that understanding. You're going to lose them. Investors will always bring in a technical expert to look at your technical deck and all the specifications if they're interested, but you want to use plain English, talking to them like they're elementary school children to make sure they understand. You don't lose them along the way. Next, big headers. This is where you say problem right at the top in the biggest text. Get rid of that. It's always helpful to include terms like problem so that investors know where they are in the deck. Don't make that the biggest thing on the slide, and I blame PowerPoint for it because what happens is you get your PowerPoint template and the big headline at the top is the biggest text, and every founder just types in problem there. That is not supposed to be the biggest words on your slide. Make them small, set them to the side, let the investor know where they are, but get rid of the big ones. This goes to walls of text. I like to say there should be no more than 40 words maximum per slide. That's not always possible, but it's a good challenge to have. If you have a wall of text and an investor has to sit there, read through everything, and they spend more time reading one slide than scanning the entire deck, then you've got a problem. Reduce the cognitive load, the friction for investors to understand. They're lazy because they can be, and they've got so many decks to look at. Make sure that you can scan the deck in 3 to 5 minutes, the entire screener deck. Get rid of those walls of text and make it easier for the investor. Pointless graphics. If you're going to put in graphics, make sure they relate, they illustrate and support what you're saying on the slide. Shots of your product, shots of customers using the product, shots of your interface. But pointless images like stock art or something you got off Midjourney or DALL-E, that's not going to help. Get rid of those because it's just going to create some confusion, that cognitive friction. Investors are going to go, that's a curious slide, and they're going to be knocked out of the narrative, the drama, the empathy that they are developing as they go through your slide deck. This one always drives me nuts, and I probably repeat it every single day at startups.com. Your market analysis needs to be bottom up, not top down. Top-down market analysis is cybersecurity is a $1 trillion industry, and we're going to take 10% of that, and everybody's going to be rich. It needs to be from bottom up. If you don't know what that is, go and study, Google it, learn it. It's pretty much the number of customers that could use your solution, have demand for it, times the price that you are going to charge every year. That is your TAM. Then you can go calculate your SAM, which is a subset based on your business model and optimization strategy. And then you can calculate SOM if you want to use all those terms, but don't do it top down, do it bottom up. Then you got team life stories. This is where founders say, oh yeah, I grew up as a small child in the backwoods of this, and we were poor, and I learned this. And investors do not care at that moment. Investors are going to eventually care. Your story is important. Don't get me wrong. It's worthwhile explaining and sharing it so the investors get emotionally involved, but not in your screener deck. You're going to use that later on. For your team bios, you just want bullet points describing your domain expertise. Have you worked on the problem and any social proof? Big logos such as you worked at Google and launched this product, or Microsoft and you're working on their AI and you decide to come and do your own thing. That's what you want to show on your team bios. Forget the long paragraphs of life stories. They do not care right then, and make sure the bullet points are nice and sweet, but also precise, and there's enough of them to really demonstrate that you have the domain expertise to do what it takes to pull this startup off. Hockey stick projections. These are those projections that are pie in the sky, fantasy numbers. Founders are always wrong. And what they do is they put in this, we're going to be profitable in 5 years, and look at all the money that we're going to make. And that graph goes up and to the right like a perfect hockey stick. That's not going to convince investors at all that you understand what financial projections are. What investors want to know, especially if you're early stage, is how you build your financial models. Do you understand financial models, your unit economics? But your projections, investors don't need to see that in the early stages because they automatically assume you're wrong. There are so many things that could go off, wrong, change, new trends, opportunities that change your financial projections. They just want to know you understand your numbers. You're going to be putting your financial models into the due diligence part after they agree for the next meeting. Leave those projections out of the screener deck. It's not going to help. Number 3, your valuation and terms. Founders do not know how to value their companies at early stages, which is the reason we got safe notes and convertibles. You don't want to put that in there and risk alienating the investor because your evaluation is wildly off. You've seen this on Shark Tank. Founders say an evaluation, and then all the sharks go, I can't believe that's it. And then you argue. That's drama for television. That doesn't happen when you're pitching startup investors. You leave that out, and if they ask you what your valuation is, what you say is, I'm not responsible to decide the value of my company. That's your job as the investor. We let the market decide that. I'm just building the most valuable company that we can, and I'm sure you've got models to determine how to value the company, and we can have a conversation about that. That's how you start the conversation, and you let them lead, and they'll tell you what they are looking for. Or if you've already sold equity, or you've got other investors that are kicking the tires and have given you terms, you can use those and tell the investor, this is what the market is saying that we're worth right now, and we can negotiate whatever you want. Don't start with your valuation and your terms. You let them know, hey, that's up to you as the investor, and professional investors that are worth working with are going to do that no problem. Now, as a side note, if you happen to be working with an investor that does not understand how to value a company, well, then it's the wild, wild west. It's up to your negotiation. We're going to leave that to you. But then I say, don't mess up your cap table. Make sure you use those safes or those convertibles. Don't sell equity prematurely, because a professional investor is going to come in, look at your cap table, and if it's too messy and you did a bum deal right in the beginning because all you did is take the money in and gave whatever terms, they are not going to invest. So this is a mistake that many founders make, and we have to backtrack and unwind deals, and that's not a comfortable situation. So make sure your cap table is clean if you are taking money in from friends, family, and associates that don't understand how to professionally value a company and offer you a proper term sheet. Number 2, this one is a little bit of a highlight here. Untested business models. Right now, we have data that investors are spending more time scrutinizing business models because they're kind of tired of back in the day of startups promising all this but not knowing how they're going to make money. So they're going to look at your business model, and your assumptions better be pressure tested. If you say, I'm going to charge $200 a month for this, or 5% transaction fees, you are going to have to back that up and show the reason you came to that number and that it makes sense. Either customers have already agreed or you've got data to support that. test your business models, pressure test all your economic assumptions, and you will look really smart for that investor. Number one, this might sound surprising, but it's generic traction. I know we talk about traction all the time, but generic traction, you want to fix that because this is the next slide that investors spend the most time on. They analyze the traction and they want to see details. This is the difference between saying we've made $300,000 with our beta, or showing them a growth graph and saying we grew 10% month over month, and this is what we start off. We started off making 10,000, and then we made 12,000, etc. Every month from there. Show them month by month, break it down, and show them your unit economics, and then your traction is not going to look generic. It's going to have momentum. And remember, it can't look like a hockey stick growth graph unless it actually is. It usually looks a little bumpy along the way, and you're going to have a financial story and explain to the investor, this is what we learned along the way as we made money or as we generated this traction. That's what investors are looking for, especially right now because the funding environment is so tough. There's your list of 13. Hope that was helpful. I'll see you in the next video.